Hi everyone, it's Cindi McIntosh with Scotweek, and I just wanted to thank everyone who tuned in last weekend to our special on-location, behind-the-scenes, and intimate look at the making of the film Robert the Bruce. And I just wanted to let you know we have additional film footage that we did take last weekend that we were not able to show to you, that we're going to show to you now, in addition to the amazing footage and the tour of the Yellowstone Film Ranch Western Town. So stay tuned and watch. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is YouTube/Scotweek. Also, we are on Instagram at Scotweek and on Facebook at Scotweek LA. Stay tuned for more really fun, informative, fun stuff that we're going to be doing in the future. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all very soon.
Robert Bruce, you want the one thing you cannot have. To be William Wallace. To be loved as he was. And that is why you will not become King of Scotland.
Any man who breaks the head of Robert the Bruce shall receive 50 gold pieces.
There is a reward. We'll have it for ourselves. Freedom. I'll show him the meaning of it.
Who is he? It's Robert the Bruce.
I shall leave here soon.
You'll leave when you're well.
Healing me is treason in these lands.
You're my king, and we'll defend you the best we can.
Start trying low! We'll find him here!
You'll fight our king to the death.
He's no king of mine.
Scotland is clutched in the grip of a mighty hand. Now, we'll set her free. Is that not worth fighting for?
What if he raises an army?
Tell me that you'll lead us. Tell me, and we will fight again.
We need to know our men died for something.
I am Robert the Bruce. It is time we fight!
But not here.
Here, although it was freezing, it was not windy. And so, remember at the start of the film, Anna was getting water out of the lake. The crew didn't even know there was a pond there.
Yeah.
It was frozen over.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Big time.
It's still in the tree.
Yeah,
the kids
were Gabriel
and Ivor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
They were shooting arrows from. So
Yes.
still there.
that was her perch.
Yeah. And then when you see a lot of the group coming down on horses, they're coming down this way.
Yeah, so Zach McGowan, that's the hill that he came down, but
Yeah.
it's Peach Shores.
Yeah.
Um,
And where she is a smokehouse, and that's what they used to do to smoke their meat. So,
and we filmed the scene where he has a dream sequence where young Scott, where Angus is in that fever dream, and he's in his full king garb,
yeah.
and he can see that Scott's bleeding and injured. We filmed that on the top of that hill at like a pink sunset.
Yeah.
And it was hardcore to get up there in the winter.
Yeah.
But it was so pretty. The light only lasted for about a half an hour, but we got it.
Well,
remember that?
Remember, you didn't get daylight until 8:30, and it got dark at 4. So that's it.
We had to get it. But the scene where they're out discussing him around the fire was right there. It was meant to take place in the hut, but they felt weird to be talking about the king in front of him, even though he's passed out. So we took it out here, and the storm was ridiculous. You know the scene?
Oh yeah.
The snow is like, and we worried. We were thinking about. We almost bought snow machines.
Well, no. He said, let's look into getting
You
snow
did
machines.
say that. I remember that.
Okay. I remember ski.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, I don't know that we're going to need that. But
And it's true. It was more about continuity. Because we were like, well, if it's a snowstorm one day, we have to come back to complete a scene. But we got really looked after. There's a story about the elk. It's a good story, Kat.
the little girl, Talitha, shot an elk, okay? And then we came back. We didn't have an elk. So we had to go find a dead elk. And the one we found, well, somebody had hunted it. And it had frozen. And it was frozen like this.
Oh, no.
So they were going to leave it frozen. And I said, are you guys nuts? And we had a heated garage. And we had 72 hours. So we thawed it out so we could push it together. But anyway, so we only had a short period of time. And we needed snow for continuity. All of a sudden, it snowed for, 20 minutes?
Just the way it snowed. So we shot half the scene. Then it became too cold to shoot. It was 9. Below
20 below.
20, yeah. And then we had to cut filming the scene where she's shooting the elk halfway into it, and we're like, fuck. And the scene's so pretty because there's a little bit of snow in the air, and we're like, how are we ever going to get the same condition?
And we got it.
And when we came back out 3
we
weeks
were
later,
blessed in a lot of different ways.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So this is one of the original conversations we had with Shoris was, does this look like parts of Scotland? And that was what was the key, because
we were on a FaceTime with him. I had not committed to the movie yet, because I'm like, we're in effing Montana, and we're going to be shooting about Scotland. So we got Soros on the phone, on FaceTime, and we started showing him pictures. And he said, that's Glen Cove, that's this, that's that. And he said, he swore that it was like the Highlands. I mean, he swore that we were showing him pictures of Scotland.
And he didn't know which pictures were Scotland and which pictures were Montana.
At all, yeah.
Because Cokedale Road, as you come up here, feels like you're driving through the UK. And it really, like, you could be in Scotland here, particularly 700 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a lot easier to film here and a lot more accessible. And so to be able to film in Scotland as well, we would have loved to film in Scotland more. But to be able to film in Scotland for 3 weeks, but base the farm here, made the production doable. And then we went to Scotland, we had the beast from the east, so the weather conditions
the
here...
worst storm in, like, I don't know how many years.
But
they called it the beast from the east, so we had that, so we had continuity.
We didn't need the snow machine.
No, we never did.
Oh my goodness. Well, tell me more, because I know you were telling us a little bit earlier with the tax credits. So how did filming in Montana work with the tax credits, and especially with your future films that you're planning on? How does it make it possible to double locations for like a Scotland, Ireland for Montana?
Well, we didn't have very much in the way of tax credits for that movie. So after that movie, Richie and I, we lobbied with the governor and with all the representatives and state senators, and we showed them, at first they said, well, people are going to come here from Hollywood. And they're going to take the money and go back to Hollywood. And we were able to say, we did a movie, Robert the Bruce, in the dead of winter when the town was in economic dire. And we were able to, they spent almost all their money here in Livingston. And we were able to get merchants to write letters and for people to call and say, we wouldn't have made it through the winter the way we did without Robert the Bruce. So very few people took their money back to Hollywood. Actually, I think they spent every bit of it here.
And of course, in LA, we like to tip properly. And so Montana doesn't really know that world. And so when LA
5% is probably pretty decent.
That's good to know.
So when LA
we should move
people
to
come,
Montana.
they spend their money here.
Yeah.
And we kept the hotel that was closed open. And we spent the money hiring, 75 locals that wouldn't have had work during the winter.
Oh, wow.
You know, they started to get on board one at a time, and then finally, we were actually fortunate to be invited to the signing for the tax credit with the governor.
Oh, brilliant.
So, yeah, that made us feel good.
And now the films that usually get filmed in Canada
Will be here.
can
Like
be
The
filmed here.
Revenant was in Canada, and it's about Montana.
Yeah.
So many.
Legends of the Fall.
Legends of the Fall. Who, by the way, the author, Jim Harrison, lived in Livingston, Montana.
And Yellowstone coming here, it means that the films don't have to go to Canada anymore, and Montana stories can be made in Montana.
Yeah, and other kinds of films. I mean, you're talking about all kinds of westerns from the Southwest to Ireland and Scotland to, I'm sure,
and not
parts
just
of Europe.
westerns, but anything.
Absolutely. I mean, you can double this for Germany. The
Yes,
Black
it can.
Forest.
Oh, big time.
Amazing.
I mean, but the cool thing about Robert the Bruce was, now that we've been, we're working on James Douglas, and we want to film in Scotland, but it's just nice to have a base here as well.
In the U.S.
So we get both.
Yeah.
Oh, what, the window? Are you coming in? This is incredible. I can't believe we're right here.
Yeah, the bunks.
In the middle of the craft.
Yeah.
From the movie.
Robert the Bruce lay right there.
Yeah.
I just looked up.
He lay right there. We had mice and everything. Like it wasn't your luxury accommodation.
But
it was real.
Crafts weren't, right?
No.
They wouldn't have been.
No. And our guys were so good. They saw this in the forest just here.
With the moss.
And they cut it down. They preserved the moss. That's real.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's lovely.
I love this because I've been in a lot of crafts in Scotland.
I bet you have.
Old ones, and this is very. And you know how they talk about the raining of cats and dogs? It's because
Yes,
would
do
all
you know
be
why
in the
that
roof.
is?
They would all be in the roof.
And it would cave in.
And when it rained,
That's
sometimes
true.
if they got wet, they would fall down out of the roof.
And that's when it's raining cats and dogs.
It's a thing, which is why people, for a long time, they would have canopies over the top of their bed to keep them, if they were sleeping in bed at night and there was a rainstorm, the cats and dogs and other rodents wouldn't fall into the bed with them.
That is great.
Wild.
That is so cool. And so we'd have the fire going for real.
Yeah.
And the chimney's great, but it was
really
so smoky in here.
Yeah.
Sometimes, even with the fire on, it was colder in here than outside.
Wow, really? Yeah.
But they did it. But it worked for the film because the vapor coming out of their mouths, they looked real.
And now, when you look at how small this is, to have to get the cast and the crew in here, cinematography.
5 actors.
We were like, everybody was just slammed in here. So.
And because it's
But it
winter,
looks so much bigger.
like the church.
Like the church. Now you've got, on what you showed me, is a church, right? We'll go down to the church next and you'll go, can't believe how small it is. So.
How tiny it is.
Yeah.
So as a director, what was it like being inside of a space this small and having to direct 5 actors of this film?
We're very lucky because the people that came on board with this film loved the story, and they were massive Robert the Bruce fans, had a background of loving Braveheart, and so it wasn't hard to convince them after Angus had spent with Eric, over a decade writing it. They were all in, which is half the battle. And so once the actors embrace the material like that, it's just like a beautiful experience because they want to be here and they want to do it. And they're in period costumes and they're freezing. But they signed on because they love the story. And it's quite rare to see a period epic that takes the point of view of the widow and orphan children. Because we see the people going off to war, but we don't see what's left behind, ever. Probably ever in movies. And so once they got the love of the story, and once we knew that we were telling something original, that we weren't trying to be Braveheart or Gladiator, that we had a different perspective, they were all in. And once the actors all in, my job becomes much, much easier. And I would just sit back, and Anna and Talitha and Gabe and Brandon were so committed. It was beautiful to watch, like in horrible conditions.
I mean,
but it showed on the screen, which makes the movie work.
Well, and we did the interview with Brandon, and Brandon talks about that, and he talks about just bonding. And as a matter of fact, all of the actors that we were able to interview so far talked about having this amazing bonding experience.
Yeah.
Not just because of the extreme cold conditions, also just because of Braveheart as well, and having a great love of that, and everyone being inspired by that.
and they would lie here, like there, to stay warm between takes. That they became brothers and sisters, and obviously Talitha and Gabe are, but Anna and Talitha and Gabe and Brandon formed this kind of family, and they would practice the accent together, and they came to work together, and it was beautiful. It was great. Like, I don't, as hard as it was, I can't remember a bad experience on set, which is probably me blacking out on things, but it's always good when you look back at a film and go, oh God, I would love to still be doing it. And so that's why we're so excited for people to see it, because we worked the hardest we've ever worked, but we're really proud of it, and so it makes it all worthwhile.
That was amazing, and I'm so glad that you've invited us here. This means such a great deal to us.
You're welcome.
You know, and just my heritage and Kelsey's heritage and all of our friends and family back home. And this, I believe this has meant a great deal to the Scottish people, and I think it's very relevant film at this time for many different reasons. And it's not like Braveheart in that, you know, you didn't have the big battle scenes, but I think it's very relevant. I don't know if I want to say accidentally or if I want to say because it was meant to be, but at this time you have these themes that there's so many people going through very similar things. And so I feel like Braveheart inspired a lot of people to take away the kilts, take away, you know, the Scottishness, just a life story of what people have to go through. And so a lot of people were able to identify with that. Women were able to identify with it being a love story. Men for the battle scenes, maybe a crossover of some of that. But at the same time, you know, here you have Robert the Bruce come in at a time where people are isolated, and here he is in a cave, and he's isolated, and he's trying to get over his wounds and be able to come out, and he has to move forward, and he has to get inspired and move forward in a way that he knows there's a future, and he's going to make it, and he becomes king. And I think that is such a great and relevant theme and story for this moment in time.
Yeah, it was against all odds. And we saw it in Glasgow, Carter. Like, the reaction we had in Glasgow was a really interesting reaction, because we had a father and a couple of sons in front of us. The reaction in Glasgow was beautiful.
Standing ovation.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand the people in Glasgow very well. In the rest of Scotland, I did, but their accent was very thick. But they loved us. And I had so many people in the audience come up to me and say, thank you for helping to create such an incredible movie. So we went away feeling very good.
They got it, and they saw the relevance of telling the story of the people that don't usually get their story told. And Glasgow got that the best.
Yeah, they sure did.
Yeah.
We could have done plywood with some fake.
It'd be gone by now.
Yeah, it'd be gone by now. And we always said we're going to do more movies, so why not keep our sets?
Yeah.
If you look at the sun right now, like, this is the time to be here.
Yeah, golden hour.
John Common's men were coming in from around here.
And then they searched him in this area here.
Right here.
Mm-hmm. And then just prior to where they hid the sword.
Yep.
Wow.
It looks tiny, right?
It's small.
Yeah.
But we had, like, I think 10 rows of pews, an altar, the two confessions.
Well, when you look at what you have about the inside of the church, you'll see what a big difference it is now.
Well, there were the confessionals had some fabric over the top.
And we had to
The
burn
confessional
this
was
side.
over. I think the confessional
Was it
was
there?
here.
Okay.
We had to burn it all. That was all real fire.
Yeah, that
So you
was.
can see the fire.
Oh my
We
goodness.
had an amazing cinematographer, John Garrett, who had these great master prime lenses, and we shot everything really wide. And I think it made a big difference to how things looked. But when you look at that door now, it looks so pretty. How pretty is that?
That's gorgeous. And where did you get the idea to make it in these shapes? And it's
we had these amazing builders that worked for a company called Sound Color Studios, and they worked with our production designers Zach and April. But because we had to build in winter, it had to be more about, hey, what is possible? But because these were fairy tales, we didn't have to be historically accurate for the flashbacks told through the eyes of the widow, because she wasn't there, and that was awesome because we could be more creative, and we wouldn't get trolled as hard on social media either, because they're just her versions of stories that she heard, which we really liked.
It's beautifully done. It looks very natural.
Looking at that door is just
Stunning.
Oh yeah, look, we've got the Braveheart thistle right there.
Oh my goodness. So this wasn't obviously here in the winter time.
You know, who was the girl in Braveheart, she played Angus's wife.
Yeah.
In the dream sequence?
And
Flashback.
And she's phenomenal.
Yes.
And so lovely. And that came to be because Angus met her at like a Braveheart 20-year anniversary. And everybody remembers the scene from Braveheart when she gives him the thistle.
She was so sweet.
And when we see the thistles here, and we would send these photos to Shoris Wallace and her, and she's like, give me a break. Like,
I'm in.
This could so be Scotland. At the other scene, when Zach is coming to attack them, we took the horses along the top of that ridge. And so when the kids go it's actually filmed at Carter's house. When the kids go to look out and they see Branda approaching, that was taken just in front of the decking at Carter's house.
Wow.
And when they look, what they're looking at is Zach and Shoris at the top of that hill.
Oh my god, what kind of lens was that?
It was an 800 millimeter, and they were on the radio, and they almost gave up because we had no range. And I was running up to Carter's house with Johnny to get the shot.
Yeah.
And they were freezing their butts off,
waiting.
And it was only Zach that said, "We came up here. We're going to get the shot." Yeah. And if you go back to the film, when the kids look out and see them coming, that's the top of Carter's house, and then that's where they are.
You know,
800 millimeters. I've never even heard of an 800.
It's a 400 millimeter with a doubler that Panavision made us specifically.
Oh my gosh.
For the shot, yeah.
Wow.
Zach talked about that.
Did he?
He talked about bringing the horse up there and how cold it was, and he
doesn't complain. So when he says it's cold.
Well, he wasn't complaining about.
Shoris never complained either.
He wasn't complaining about the cold, but he was worried about the horse, and so he didn't want to take the horse near the cliff. And he talks about that, and he talks about how.
So that was it.
Yeah, he said he kept the horse away from the cliff because it was minus 20, and he didn't want the horse to bolt over the cliff. And so he made it sound like maybe I'm reading it wrong. He struggled a little bit with that because of the temperature.
But it could have been. But I've never done a shot where it must be 2 miles away.
Yeah.
Your house.
Yeah.
From there to there. It was
about
awesome.
2.
But to be on the radio and to capture it and to see it on the film, and it works. You see them. You see them coming.
You should have told Zach that we cut it.
Imagine that.
This building served as 2 purposes. One was for the saloon or the pub, and the other one was for the blacksmith, yes. So we had to convert them, and then we had a makeshift town, which right now with the grass is hard to see. Over there is a set, and so what we did, if you watch in the movie, is that we had people out here that were selling bread, and
the ox was getting led through the...
Yeah. So we had a mini town, right?
Gallows behind you.
Yeah, there are gallows. Yeah.
And remember the scene where Zach almost drowns?
Yes.
Shane Coffey?
Yes.
That's just there.
Okay.
But we're actually on an island, and this is an island that Carter has land on. We're on an island in Montana.
Next to the Yellowstone River.
Yeah.
Which we'll walk over.
But as you can see, when you look around the forest, we were able to steal a lot of stuff here. And it was really convenient. It's right in
yeah, we're 3 minutes from downtown. Or your closest pub.
We had a funny story because we had an accident here just before we got...
Well, first, we did the blacksmith first, and then one of our last things was the pub.
It was the last thing.
It was the last thing. So the night before, and it was freezing cold, tons of snow, and we had an accident, and it started on fire. And had they not have gotten it out, it would have burnt this whole thing down, and we had no alternative at all. So come on in. This is where the fire occurred, and had we not have gotten it out, we would have been in deep trouble.
And just like the church, see how smaller it looks. So in the film, Zach and all his cronies are here. Shores Wallace is here. Shane is here. Zach's there. There's a stage there that he's singing at. You know, Dad's Malort comes in. But again, like the church, you see what the movie does because it looks tiny, right?
Yes.
It looks tiny, but in the movie, it looks like a big tavern.
It does, yeah.
This got moved. This got moved. So this, when Carter said this was the blacksmith with Kevin McNally, as well as the tavern. This was the entrance for the blacksmith, and the facade, the look of the building from the opposite side is incredibly different to what it looks like the front. So Brandon Lassard rocked up here on his bike, had his little love scene with Emma Kenny, and then they came through this door, and she was hiding behind there, and Kevin McNally had that massive earth here, where he had the bellows.
The huge bellows.
Yeah. That was right here.
Yeah.
And then we flipped it to be the tavern. And it worked really well because you can't. If you watch the movie now, you'll be able to. I don't think you'll be able to pick it because these guys are so handy. They moved this. Yeah, and built a new one kind of because that was more round.
Yeah, because the other one was right here.
Yeah. So Emma was hiding in the boxes in the hayloft over there when Zach and Kevin McNally were doing their scenes, and then it was the tavern for all those other scenes. But it was fun because it was our wrap night. It was our last night of shoot. So once we wrapped, out came the beer and the whiskey. It was a lot of fun.
And it was Woodford Reserve.
And you can see Carter in the scene if you look closely.
Let's go look at it.
That's a long story. Let me just tell you.
So the front half of the building had this kind of a look to it. I won't take you into the Snake Gully over here, but
there's no Snake Gully.
But yeah, so Shane Coffey, Zach pulled Shane out of that back hut and then almost drowned him right here.
Oh wow, the huts are back here.
Yeah, and the huts and you can see, and again the designers, although it's been sitting here for 18 months, so it's going to get decrepit. But again, the designers did such a great job. And when you rewatch the movie, when you see the amount of bustle and hustle they got going on in the town, it was really...
We've been getting a lot of requests from the public. We want to come out and see this.
Oh, cool.
So what we might be doing is refurbish it so that it maintains its originality.
Put the bar back in.
Put the bar
That'll
back
work.
in.
Yeah.
The Montana locations of Robert the Bruce were filmed in and around the Yellowstone Film Ranch, with locations and sets spanning from the small towns of Livingston to Prey. Yellowstone Film Ranch is quickly becoming the go-to full-service studio and backlot for Montana's burgeoning film industry. The area of Sage Lodge in Prey is home to YFR's Western Town backlot. The sets of the Western Town are all carefully constructed with the finest craftsmanship. Each period detail has been painstakingly recreated to make sure both quality and historical integrity of the Old West are depicted. From the saloon wallpaper to the church windows, exquisite research and thoughtful creativity have been put into every detail. On our recent visit to the ranch, executive producer Carter Beohm and director Richard Gray gave Scotweek an inside look at this beautiful Old West town.
So we did not stain the windows because we don't know what kind of church it's going to be, but they do have, we can put on there plastic and it will look stained depending on your denomination.
It's beautiful.
But you can see, you can come over here and you can unbolt all of this, that's steel, and unbolt everything, and we hook onto it with a crane and it just lifts right in.
Wow.
So,
Very fun.
not very many buildings you can do that with.
And so that's how you're able to do the
The
church
fire.
screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. Beautiful. And of course, this is perfect for the West because I don't believe that the West had stained glass windows in their churches.
I don't think they did, but you don't know what movie's coming in and what they want to do.
And what country there might be,
yeah.
Like Scotland.
Exactly right, yeah. So this is going to be the sheriff in the jail. And again, we have more to do in here. But
this is used to put in here?
Yeah.
So
it's also set where you can break out of jail, the horse and the rope, and they close it open. And then I want you to notice something. This can be New Mexico, Arizona, Nebraska.
So because we could design it from scratch and all the Western towns have been cobbled together over time, but because we could design it from a film perspective, we could build things in that movable walls, create more space. And then again, for a film to be able to put a camera 2 yards further back is so good.
Yeah.
And so we were able to make it bigger because, you know, all the existing ghost towns, everything was tiny back then.
Real tiny.
But with film, we want it to be big. These just went in the roofs of the cells because it was too easy to get out. But all locally made. Like everything here is locally made.
Welcome to our saloon. Everything that's been built here has been built by hand. And as you can look around, even the wallpaper, we had to do research to make sure it was the appropriate era. The bar was hand built here on site, which is very difficult to do. And they did a lot of research to make sure that it was appropriate for that era. And you can see it's got the copper in it.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. And let me tell you something. We did the livery stable, and when we were done with that, we had a crew. And so I said, let's put that crew to help build the saloon. And our saloon crew said, absolutely not. Nobody's going to build this but us, because in 20 years, when we're watching a TV or a movie, we're going to kick back and say, I built that. So the pride of craftsmanship is unbelievable on this whole town. Everybody was so, you know, they said they build $10 million homes at the Yellowstone Club at Big Sky, and they say when they're done, they don't get invited to the party, they don't get to see anything. Well, think about it, you know?
True.
And so in this case, they now are attached to this for life. And so we have an incredible crew of people. We have some hidden things in here.
This is stunning.
This is where the potbelly stove will go. The old piano or organ, we haven't decided yet. Then if you want some secret things.
Of course. Who doesn't want some secret things?
Because movie magic, you know. So you come back here.
Oh my gosh.
And
I thought he was going to grab a bottle of scotch for a minute.
this will be full commercial kitchen.
Wow.
So that we can feed the staff and cast and crew and everybody. So, and of course it's hidden, so that they can be preparing meals while they're shooting, as opposed to bringing a catering in a trailer and giving substandard food. This is fresh and hot.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. either be a false wall here or have two bordellos or one big one. So,
and we have to keep, because it's interesting for us to not have a particular film in mind, because it's a different side of the brain. For us, we usually be like, well, I do this here, this here, this here.
Yeah.
But actually, it needs to be more of a blank canvas, so someone can come in and say, I want this to be an office, or I want this to be a hotel.
So it's very versatile. I want to tell you about the church, if I may.
Yeah.
You can see it's very authentic. It's 64 feet or 6 stories from the cross to the ground, and it's very versatile in that you can remove the cross, the steeple, and whatever we call that below that, if you can see where those windows are. So you can make the church a poorer church. So you can put the steeple all the way down there. You can eliminate the steeple. So you've got 3 or 4 different types of churches that you can have all in one.
Amazing.
And also, and this is really cool, everybody in Western wants to burn the church down. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yes.
But they do. So we built this out of steel, as you'll see when we go into the church, so that we can unbolt it, we can lift the church up, and we can move it. So that we build a skeleton to burn.
Oh,
so we're not burning a $500,000 building. So that was part of our design, and again, a little movie magic.